Hey everybody, this is Matt, the owner of Tails Channel. This is Josh, the owner of Ongaku Concept, bringing you the latest in video game music theory. Today, I want to talk about naming chords because it's not really as obvious as you might think. Because labeling chords has a lot to do with context and subjective things. You can't just take this entire first bar here and look at every single note, combine all of them, and say, okay, there's your chord. It doesn't really work that way. We got to look at what's important here and what's really being focused on. And look at the big picture. All right, so this is a song called Hepatica from the JRPG Atelier Totori. I started transcribing this a few months ago. I haven't exactly finished it, but I did transcribe in full the first 8 bars, which we'll be looking at today. So the song is in the key of E flat. I've already transcribed all of this. I'm just looking to name the chords as a whole. So let's take a listen to this first 4 bars, just so we can hear. Alright, so if I do say so myself, I believe this is a very, very accurate transcription. You can check with the song if you like, but we're going to take a look at what's going on here. First of all, the most obvious thing is we have a piano playing chords right here. We have this one chord here, it's the first half of the bar. We have an A flat on the bass here. At least, it's not exactly very low, but it's as low as everything gets for now. A flat on the bass. We make up an A flat major chord here. So we have A flat over here. We have I can't read music. Bill. We have E flat, and we have G. Sorry. We have an A flat major 7. A flat, E flat, and G. So where's our what key are we in? Right? We're in the key of E flat. From this context, we can assume that this is an A flat major chord, even though the C isn't present. We can assume. And actually, if we look up at the melody starts on a C. So there's enough context for us to go, okay, this is an A flat major 7. You can write this with a capital M, with maj, or you can do the little, come on, there we go, the little delta symbol. I prefer to use the capital M, A flat major 7. And then we get this. That sounds pretty clear to me. We have G on the bass, but it's not actually a G chord. So we have G on the bass here, right? Up here we have an E flat. I cannot read music. And we have an F natural. Okay, so what is that? We have G, E flat, F natural. If we analyze this from G, that could be, let's see, E flat is the 6, F is E flat being the flat 6, F is the 7. It doesn't make sense. Let's try analyzing it from something else. Let's try analyzing it from E flat. So let's see. If we have E flat here, G is the 3rd, F is the 9. So we can say we have an E flat add 9. There's no B flat present, but the 5th is honestly, I cannot think of the word that's the opposite of mandatory, but the 5th is expendable. Let's put it that way. And as an added bonus, up here we have the melody kind of embellishing an E flat arpeggio. We have B flat here, G, and E flat. Isn't that nice? All right, so we have E flat, add 9. Over G. You could just put E flat over G. I like to be a little more specific and add the 9th as well. So, that's the first bar. you'll notice that despite the fact that it's in the key of E flat major, we don't actually begin on an E flat chord. That's very common, and it would do you well not to assume that the first chord of a song is the tonic chord, because there are many situations where that is not the case. Even with the melody, the first note of the melody is C, and this is very far from the key of C. So we appear to have the same idea over here. Another A flat major 7, and then E flat add 9 over G. You can, so what am I using to make this decision? We've already been looking at the piano as kind of our main source for the harmony, but what about other harmonic information, which so far is just the tin whistle and the xylophone? Stuff like this little trill here, this little embellishment. I leave that kind of information out as much as I can. I'm really looking for notes that are stressed. For example, this melody is kind of embellishing an E flat arpeggio, but this D here is not. It's not made like really clear. It's not emphasized in any way. This doesn't carry the sound of an E flat major 7 chord. And so I don't feel like it needs to be added into the name of the chord. And that's my opinion. That's just like my opinion, man. That's how I would go about naming it. And like I said, chord naming is a little bit subjective. Some people may go ahead and choose to add that in. And they would not necessarily be wrong in doing so, although I wouldn't agree saying that that is important enough of a note to be included. So it really comes down to looking at what labeling things to be as clear for your performer as possible. So we start with an A flat major 7, go to an E flat, add 9 over G. I think that's enough information for them to understand kind of the general idea of the sound that this carries. Let's continue on. Same exact thing. Not a lot of variation going on at this point. This chord progression, by the way, just a little more theory for you. This chord progression, it's called a plagal chord progression, because we, plagal meaning like it involves there's a plagal cadence going on. A flat to E flat, that's 4 to 1, is called a plagal cadence. It's also called an amen cadence for its prevalence in hymns. And it's very common as a chord progression to just kind of go between those two chords. It's very nice. I like it a lot. I use it a lot in my own music. Over here, we have something really kind of interesting. So we start. There's a lot of chords changing very quickly here. So we have another A flat major 7, and then one chord that hits right here. Very quick. B flat. I can't read music, I'm sorry. D, F. What is that? That's a B flat major chord. And over here, yeah, we have D. So that's a B flat right there. That's our 5 chord. And next, we can probably expect a 1 chord, correct? Sort of. We get the 1 chord, but it's suspended. I could tell that by ear. But if we look at it, oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. We have the B flat still on the bass. I like it. I like it a lot. So we have B flat on the bass. We have an E flat over here. We have our 4th of the E flat. This is A flat, B flat, E flat, A flat. That's interesting. So it's an E flat sus4 over, and there's our E flat again. It's an E flat sus4 over B flat. That's kind of interesting. So an E flat chord This is an E flat chord in second inversion, meaning that the fifth of the chord is in the bass. This is very common as a setup for a resolution to just kind of extend the tonic out a little bit because the fifth in the bass is not entirely stable and it wants to be resolved. So it's kind of interesting to see this combine, and having a sus4 chord does that as well. It just adds a little bit of tension. We need to get that resolved. Even though we're here on the tonic, we're not quite there. We need to kind of make some changes. So it's interesting to see these two ideas combined. And then we finally resolve on an we finally resolve on an E flat major right here. Except that is a D flat. That's our first out of key note. That's really interesting, isn't it? And it's just a passing tone. So if we were to add a D flat to this chord, we would get E flat 7. Do I think it's worth labeling the chord this way? I mean, I could put E flat. I'm sorry that I hit the wrong. Oh, what did I do? What did I do? I could label it E flat here, and then, put E flat 7 over there, like so. I don't think that's necessary. I could just put E flat 7 here to cover the entire last quarter note of the bar. But I feel like this is just a passing tone more than anything. Because we did really clearly resolve on an E flat major chord. Is this worth including in the chord name? I don't know. It's kind of subjective. To me, it's nothing more than a passing tone that the pianist decided to use to pull towards the next chord. Considering E flat 7 is the 5 of 4, it's the 5 of A flat, which is indeed the next chord we go to. We go back to another A flat major 7. So that's a really cool idea. That's really smart. But do I think it's worth putting in the chord name? Personally, I do not, because I feel like it's nothing more than a passing tone. But that's just like my opinion, man. As we go back into this, it's the same idea. It's exactly the same as what we had before. We do have a harp playing the root and fifth of the key. So we have E flat and B flat alternating. The B flat with the A flat major 7 chord combined can create an A flat major 9. Is that worth adding into the chord name? Again, that's kind of subjective. Do you think it's important enough to be added into the chord name? It's nothing more than a color tone. It doesn't change the function. Is it worth including in the name? I might not do it. I put it here. Let me go ahead and add that in. A flat major 7. What I might do in this instance is I would put 9 in parentheses. And that would communicate to the player, okay, it's A flat major 7, but if you want to stress the 9th, you can. Because it's there, I'm allowing you to do so. Maybe they already have the liberty to do so, but I don't know. If I put down A flat major 7, I want the performer to play A flat major 7. So that's a bit of an insight into how I go about labeling chords. It's a bit of a subjective process as to how much information you include and how much you don't. I look for mostly the rhythm section, and I look for I tend to leave out fills. Like you notice, I skipped entirely past this little harp scale pattern here because I didn't think any of these notes were important to the chord. It was just kind of a fill. It was just there, including this little glockenspiel part here. It wasn't important enough to me to include in the naming of the chord, since we're looking for very prominent notes that really carry the harmony. I do really like the idea of this what's the word for it? A bit of a cadential 6/4 chord over here, combined with the idea of a suspended fourth. That's really nice. I really like that a lot. Very simple. You'll notice that like we only used the 1, 4, and 5 chords throughout this. There were some inversions, some extensions, and things like that. But this is really well composed. So yeah, that's how I would go about naming chords. It's a bit of a subjective process, but I hope you guys learned a little bit from this and might inspire you to try labeling some stuff of your own. And if you want to talk about more about this, I will be discussing it on the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/ongaku concept VGM. If you listened all the way to the end, thank you so much for listening and watching, whatever. I really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, we'll be talking about modes. See you then.